All right, all right, all right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for investing this time with me and Didier here. I am Lois Koffi, a co-panelist, co-teacher today about this amazing, amazing topic. And I just realized I actually have the old name was Breaking Generational Curses, but we changed it to Breaking Ancestral Curses for Health and Wealth. So that's our mugs. We really want to support a lot of people who are here in this exciting time on the planet, who are, we believe, here to heal their families generations back, and then of course their descendants, but also the collective. Once you heal yourself, you can heal so many other people. And especially if you felt like me, the black sheep of your family, and always felt different, maybe always felt a little bit outcasted, or just not like everybody else. And they're like, how did I choose this family? Well, we're going to tell you why today. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm also a host of the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise podcast. So if you see the theme here, we want to help you live your best health, your best wealth, and that can be finances, relationships. Wealth and prosperity is such a vast label, whatever that means for you. And then of course, trusting your best wisdom. And we're going to be mostly talking about the ancestral wisdom today. And you can subscribe on YouTube. My husband's been a guest many, many times, and he's going to continue to be a guest because we really want to build this awareness. So I'd like to start off just before I turn the baton to my husband, just reminding you to take notes and also have an open mind. Mark Twain says, an open mind leaves a chance for someone to drop a worthwhile thought in it. And I always like to say a worthwhile golden nugget. You may hear something today that shocks you. You may hear something today that might even trigger you. And you may hear something that blows your mind. And so make sure you have that opportunity. So be focused, distraction-free as best you can. If you can, shut down your phone, Facebook, and hopefully you're not driving, and be able to take some powerful notes. So Didier, on that note, I'm going to let you take it from here. Yeah.
Yep. So we're good to go. Okay. So thank you everyone who was joining us for this edition of our little chat, Lois and I, about this whole topic of ancestry or ancestral heritage, ancestral connections, and how it is important to be aware of it today, to really understand a lot of the events that are happening in your life. There is a tremendous amount of what you're doing now that is connected to what your ancestry went through. And we're going to try to cover that topic from different angles and kind of share also some of the personal experience of that and some of the things Lois also has herself discovered, encountered, learned from this connection to our ancestral lineage, and how healing of us and them can come from an awareness today by us of our ancestry and how we connect to it and what it means to us today. So I think it's easier to kind of share a little bit of a story. And I'm going to try to put it in a context that's relatable as much as possible. So about ancestry and the meaning and the importance of it. For me, to give you an idea, I was born in West Africa. Côte d'Ivoire is the name of the country. But I discovered recently that though I was born in Côte d'Ivoire, which is the name of the country, name that was given actually by the French, colonized that part of the world many, many, many decades ago, actually centuries ago. My own heritage, like where I come from, the people who were here before me, who have contributed to my existence today, right? So these are my ancestors. Without them, I wouldn't be alive today, right? They came from 6 different tribes, right? So the concept of country did not exist if you go back a few centuries and several centuries back to a continent like Africa. There were kingdoms, and as well as tribes, right? That's kind of the generic way in which communities were described as part of a tribe or part of a kingdom. So there are 6 of them, either kingdom or tribes, either it was a mixture of the two, that I'm connected to. I didn't really know that precisely until very recent years, where I really took time to understand where I come from and who my ancestors were. But that being said, until I made that decision to really dig into my ancestry and understand where I come from, I was living a different life. And I would say that the main reason for me to go back and make that decision to learn about my ancestors and how to connect with them is that I would say that my life had been worse or, a total disaster, but I was not happy. For real, I was not happy. I was around 50, like middle-aged, black man in America. I've done all kinds of things, worked for big corporations, left and right, big government agencies, left and right. There are times when I made tons of money, big money. I have a beautiful wife, I have kids, but still I was not happy. There was a lot of unresolved aspects of my life that I was dealing with internally that started to impact, or that had been impacting everything that I was doing outside. For example, my connection to my wife, how could I be a better partner with her, an open partner, a co-creative partner with her, and not necessarily be in a role of either dominance or subservience to her. And there was a lot of friction between Lois and I around that aspect of our relationship. The intimacy element, what's so important, hey, get married, we have a partner, there's intimacy involved. And the intimacy was not also fully lived or experienced to what I believe we have the capacity to do, Lois and I. That was that. And then there's the general unhappiness about my career, my profession. The work that I've done, which was really great, right? As I said, I worked for big corporations, Fortune 500s, left and right, big government agencies, big departments in the United States government. Was given lots of responsibilities, being published for my work, my contribution to the fields of mostly engineering and computer science that I'm connected to. Like, you search for my name, you'll find me as an author, and there are many papers that I've written throughout my career that gave me some visibility in that community. But with all of that, I was still not happy. And that's one of the reasons why I would say my ancestor reached out, as opposed to me reaching up or down to them, whichever way you want to look at it. They reached out to me and found me at the age 50 and had a very profound message for me. And really the message was around embracing who I was, what was part of my heritage in terms of wisdom and gifts and abilities, but also in terms of the truth of who I am. Because until then, I had lived my life according to standards, which are fine for some people, but they were not necessarily the best for me. So to give you an idea of that, as I said, I was born in Côte d'Ivoire. At a very young age, like maybe 3 or 4, my parents took me to France. Yes, France, Paris, actually. Right? So I lived in the suburbs of Paris for 10 years, from a very young age until I was about 14. Imagine that, growing up in Paris as a young child, I was influenced, of course, by Western society. France is a very powerful melting pot of different cultures, but it is still pretty dominant in terms of Western cultures and values. That's the system of value that I was brought up in. And by default, you adopt what you're in the middle of. Your environment kind of gets into you in so many different ways. So I started embracing the Western values of, a little bit of consumerism here, individualism over there. As far as reverence, I'm not going to say that all people in the Western culture don't have a reverence for the earth. Many do. But it's not necessarily something that is promoted as you grow up. They don't necessarily teach you to be a good custodian of the earth. Maybe in more recent years with the whole pollution and all the global warming and all those things. Those themes are coming a little bit more to the surface these days. But when I was growing up, nobody was talking about it. It was about consumerism, exploitation, use, control of material resources to fuel the industrial age, and then it's, turn into the technology, information technology age. And a lot of it was really driven by values that deeply inside were not mine. They were from a system of society, mostly Western, modern Western society. And that's what I adopted. So I went to engineering school, piled up engineering degrees. I got 3 of them. Went to do a PhD, got published before even having my PhD, and then got drafted out of my PhD program by government project that needed my skill set. So I dropped out of my PhD to go do work in the industry. Started making big money doing that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm living the American dream here. Big money, contributing to the technology expansion of the world, led by the United States and all the high-tech stuff that was going on in the US. From my time in Europe to my time in the United States, I went back for about 10 years. When I was 14, I went back to West Africa and started discovering, having a little bit more of a hint of what my traditions, African traditions were. But still, because the Ivory Coast itself has a very strong influence with France, I didn't really take time to dig deeper. I was mostly aware that there were other things, but I didn't take time to go deep. So though I was in Africa, back in Africa from age 14 to 25, I really didn't take time to dig deeper. What happened on the other side was I started digging into the religious heritage also of Western culture. I was a Christian, but a Catholic, and I started adopting a lot of the Catholic dogma. I know, I'm not saying that anything that's Catholic is bad, but there is a certain amount of dogma, that are being imposed and pretty much drilled into your being. I went to Catholic school, I went to boarding schools, all those beautiful places where you get beaten into you discipline and dogma of Christianity. So it was down to me as a young teenager growing up. And that's what happened when I was in Ivory Coast, right? And then I came to the United States at age 25, started that beautiful career in the IT and information age, and went on from there thinking that, okay, that's gotta be it. So was not it. And I had to go all the way until the age of 50 for the alarm to be brought to me by my very own ancestors. They were reaching out to me from a space, a realm, if you want to call it, that is not the physical one. I'm not talking about ancestors who are still alive somewhere in Africa. I'm talking about people who died a really long time ago, who come to me in different forms and kind of lit a fire under my butt. You say, you have to wake up, Didier. You're missing the point. There is more to life than what you've done so far. No matter how nice and pretty it looks on paper, deep inside, are you happy? And the answer was, no, I'm not. And they were like, okay, you're gonna have to go and figure out why that is so. And they did it in some of the most, for me, very hard to ignore ways, right? There were some apparitions, there were some connection with ghosts. There were sounds that I would hear, whispers of my ancestors, songs and drums of my ancestors in the middle of the night. And I was like, why am I hearing all this? Where is it coming from? And that was right at the beginning of the pandemic, year 2020. And I was given that call to go dig into my ancestry. And that's what I did. I started digging. And what I found while doing that, which was not an easy path, there was a lot of false beliefs that I needed to let go. There was a lot of humility that I needed to demonstrate, knowing that even though I was 50, there were some more fundamental, more profound realities and values in life that I had not taken time to fully embrace. So I had to humble myself and I had to go to my ancestors and say, okay, I hear your voice. I've heard your call. What is it that I need to do? What is it that I need to do? And they helped me from there, which is very interesting. I started meeting people along the way who were brought to me to help me navigate that quest, reconnecting with my ancestors. And while I was doing that, a lot of very powerful information was revealed to me. One of them was, for example, that my ancestry connects to a kingdom, actually two kingdoms. I kind of knew that, but I never really took it seriously. But I was made to be more mindful of that kingdom connection because it comes with a lot of responsibility. Back in West Africa, most of the tribal societies, when somebody has a position of either a king or or a chief or queen or priestess, it comes with responsibility to the community. And there's a whole bunch of talents that come along with it, abilities that are considered supernatural, that are provided to you from your lineage, from your bloodline, not because they want you to be, the head of everything and be the one in command and the big boss and the big guy. No, you become the great servant of your community, and you have services that you need to provide to your community because of that. And that's what was being called within me. It's like, Didier, you have those services that you're supposed to give to your community. And it doesn't have to be going back to Africa or any one of my 6 tribes and offering those services there. Be part of it. But it was more in general, this life that you're living here, you were meant to offer some pretty interesting services of spiritual nature to the community of humans that are going to be around you. And you need to pay attention to that. And that was the deep message that was sent to me through my ancestry. And by doing so, I was also able to heal some of the, how would I say that? Rewrite the story of, for example, West Africa and slavery. If you think about that, right? I'm from West Africa, a Black man in the United States. We know what happened in the United States from big slaves. Most of them came from West Africa. And that history of abuse by Western society of a culture in Africa that was very in touch with nature and was incredibly reverent of not only the beauty, but the power, the wisdom of nature, was really crushed by colonization. And that was also in my bloodline. Maybe that's the reason why I kind of submitted to the Western culture without really, thinking about it, because I'm like, well, they took over my ancestors. They're not the one, those kingdoms are not so big anymore. They're still there, but they're not like the ones that people are talking about and using as a reference of success in this day and age. Well, everybody's talking about Western Europe. People are talking about Russia and China, of course, for all reasons, and then the United States, right? So there was a part of me that by default kind of submitted to these colonization activities of my past that was done to my ancestors. So I had to be able to reclaim that and say, I am not going to, my story is not going to be the story of slavery and abuse and control by the Western culture. I want to reconnect to that part of my story where we had unbelievable gifts, spiritual gifts. We had an unbelievable understanding of nature, of its, at a very deep level. I'm not just talking about scientific understanding of nature, but its holistic understanding of nature, where all the connections are taken into consideration, as opposed to segmenting knowledge like modern science does. And nowadays, people are starting to understand that's not necessarily the best way to do it, and it's starting to have more collaborative, holistic approaches to understanding nature. But back then, my ancestors knew that by default. That's the knowledge they were passed on to them from one generation to the next. And there's so much beautiful lessons to be learned and to practice in a way of life that is so much more harmonious, less friction, less conflict within people and within communities when you have that way of looking at the world, at life as a human society, but also as a symbiosis between humans and nature, all kingdoms of nature, animal, plant, and also mineral, right? All of them are connections that back then my ancestors really understood. And they were bringing back that awareness to me, bringing back that wisdom. And they said, connect to that. That's your story. That's the true story that went on for several centuries and millennials before colonization happened in West Africa. So rewrite your story. Don't be the story of abuse or slavery. Be the story of that great wisdom. Find it again and start radiating, learning it, integrate it into my life and start radiating it. So that's how I started coming out of the closet as a shaman, because my ancestor did deliver on the promise of revealing unbelievable things. I don't even know where to start. The new things that I've discovered in the past 2 years of how for myself to be in integrity with my own being, to be in alignment with divine, to receive from the divine all kinds of stuff, all kinds of goodies. And this is done free of charge. I don't have to pay a penny for it. But I have to do the work internally to be able to receive that and put it in the right context and apply it properly in my own life and in service to others. There is work involved. It's not just like that. It's not a magic, snap of the finger and it happens. There was a lot of work that I've done over the past 2 years to be able to be a good custodian of that wisdom and use it properly. And I'm continuing to learn. It's not over. There is so much more to be revealed to me and so much more to provide as a service to my community or my communities. So these are the things I really wanted to share with you as far as understanding the impact of ancestry, what it can do for you. So that was my story as a West African person. And I'm going to transition to Lois in a few minutes by talking about what she discovered. And also through my own experience of my reconnecting with my ancestors, I was given the guidance actually by my own grandfather, who was a great healer in his time, lived to be almost 100 years old, lived across the 1800s and the 1900s. So it's seen a lot. He's seen also the slavery and seen the colonization, lived through all of that. But he came to me, and once I had started reconnecting with my ancestry and understanding a little bit more the wealth of wisdom that was part of it, he actually pointed me to my own wife, and it's his wife also has an ancestry that is very rich. Help her go back in time, not necessarily to European, like Victorian era. He says, go way back to the time when even the Vikings were around. And there is a tremendous amount of wisdom that is awaiting for her to rediscover and reclaim. And that's going to help her also heal a lot of her own aches, pains, and unhappiness today, if she really understands where she's from and what is the story of her ancestors. Like I was able to reconnect with the story of my own ancestors. I helped her reconnect to the story of her ancestors. That took us back to the Vikings. Took us back to entities like Woden, yes, Odin, like from Marvel movies, Odin, father of Thor. Yeah, that's exactly who I'm talking about. To Frey, who was Odin's wife, right? And people ask like, Didier, what the heck are you talking about here? Yes, I'm saying it the way I'm saying it. They are real. And she needed to make those connections. And she needed to go beyond, of course, the deities that existed back then, but what were the traditions that the people connected to those spiritual traditions were, what are the values that they were doing? What happened to them? Remember the story of the African becoming slaves of Western society? Well, back then, the Vikings became persecuted by Christianity. One, Christianity was growing and expanding into Europe. And we discovered the story of her very own ancestors through the help of my own ancestors and some of the gifts that they've given me. We were able to dig into the past and witness what happened to Lois's own ancestors. And that shed a light over so many things that today Lois was struggling and she's coming out of that, but she was in the middle of some tremendous struggles internally. And it was directly connected to some ancestral trauma that happened centuries and centuries and centuries ago. We were able to go back, heal that trauma. And then she started developing all kinds of new abilities, all kinds of new alignments, all kinds of new wisdom within herself, because she was given the opportunity to not only reconnect with her ancestry, heal from the trauma of it, and then embrace all the wisdom, tremendous, loving, caring wisdom, again, all aligned with divine will and divine intent. She was able to reconnect, reclaim that, and bring it into her life today. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys with the time that I have. I'll let Lois take it from there and kind of share her own experience and material about this topic. So you got it, honey, it's yours now.
Oh, thank you. That was so amazing. Give him a virtual round of applause, everybody. And I know he has even more to share. So Dee, if you think of anything later and you want to share more, feel free. I'm going to do my thing and then we'll have plenty of time, guys. But the hope is to have at least 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. So as Didier said, we both were in this space together. And 2 years ago, I hit it was 2021. It was around 2020 when my brother died suddenly of alcoholism, and my mom died right after him. And I had multiple friends commit suicide, and I was just at a loss, stricken by grief. I'd already lost my father, and was just like wondering, what the hell am I here for? I had my own suicidal thoughts, never really full on ideation, but I was really depressed. And I'm going to share my slides because it keeps me on task, guys. And I do very well with slides. My husband's amazing. And I'm going to use these slides just to make sure I can bring this point home to you. And I'm going to make some book references and things so you'll have the visuals on the video as well. But make sure to take notes. But this is where I was at in early 2021. And I didn't realize at the time that it was my ancestors calling me, like Didier was talking about. I had a spiritual mentor who said, "Hey, Lois, it's time for you to come out of the spiritual closet. It's time for you to wake up." My marriage was on the rocks. I really thought we were going to get a divorce. I was making tons of money, but I felt like I had to work hard for my money. I had to go, do. I felt like a worthless mom as a result, really disconnected from my kids. I was 30 pounds heavier than I wanted to be. And I was desperate at that point. I was trying dieting. And if you know my background in health and fitness, I've coached 10,000 plus people in health, fitness, weight loss, detoxes and things. And I knew diets didn't work, but that's how desperate I was. I was looking for a quick fix, right? My clients were doing okay, but many were having similar stressors and struggles. I started noticing even non-clients, prospects, people working through the pandemic and thinking, I'll be happy someday when I hit X amount of dollars, when I have this, dress size, we were living in their head, not in their heart, which is where I was. And I was binge drinking multiple times a week, depressed and shameful and very, very self-judgmental, beating myself up about it. I just felt numb and dead inside. Like I said, struggling with a lot of grief and not knowing how to handle it, not knowing how to process it. So something was gnawing at me inside, and it was my ancestors, and they were wanting me to heal. And at that time, business coaches, therapists, courses, I was addicted to buying courses too, and they just were not working for me. So I struggled with where to begin, again, not knowing still what was really happening. And I decided that I was just in this unconscious loop where I was on that hamster wheel, unconsciously self-sabotaging myself left and right. I had spent thousands of dollars on all these things, and I thought I should know better. And I realized I was focusing on the effect, not the cause. What was the root cause of it? So instead of the root cause, I was focusing and judging myself more on, how much alcohol I was drinking, or the food that I was addicted to, or scrolling on social media, working too much, texting and notifications, addicted to my smartphone. Those were the effects that were presenting themselves, and the weight and all of that kind of stuff. But then I read a book I'll share with you in just a little bit that reminded me that these are just effects, and it's time to go deeper. And so I did work with plant medicine, microdosing with psilocybin. I'm not really talking about that today, but it started helping peel back the layers of the onion. I was hearing this, talk about shadow work, working and finding deep into the subconscious what was really happening. And I was really struggling with people pleasing, over giving. I had no healthy boundaries. My limiting beliefs of not enough, not worthy were driving me. I had shiny object syndrome, not finishing things when I would start them, overcommitting, saying yes without even thinking, kind of like a knee-jerk response. I'd be overthinking, overanalyzing, had a lot of headspace stuck in my analytical mind. I was in overwhelm oftentimes. I was really what I would call addicted to drama. I had this dopamine, adrenaline junkie rush. I kind of joke like sands through the hourglass. So are the days of our lives. I felt like I was living in this drama, addicted to gossip or worrying about others, thinking about what are people thinking about me, and really just in overdrive. And this was just 2 years ago, right? I was what I called myself an addictive personality. And many of these I discovered after I watched a documentary called Wisdom of Trauma. If you haven't heard it, check it out. Gabor Mate. I talk about him a lot now with my clients. But a lot of these were unconscious, and they were the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn trauma responses. And I pretty much fit all of these quadrants in one way or another. I'll give you a moment to just kind of look at these and see if any of these resonate with you. And then we're going to talk about some of the origins of where they came from. Difficulty making decisions, stuck, disassociation, that was me. People pleasing, lack of identities, no boundaries, overwhelmed, that was me. Anger, outbursts, explosive behavior times, that was me. Workaholic, overthinker, yep. And so our behaviors and traumas didn't just happen overnight, right? And I believe now that they did not start in this body. However, in this lifetime and in this body, if you've experienced micro traumas as a baby who didn't get your blanket right away, or you didn't get your bottle right away, or you just didn't maybe get all the love that you wanted, Gabor Mate talks about that in The Wisdom of Trauma. And then in this book, The Body Keeps the Score, talks about, car accidents, divorce, death, sexual trauma. I've seen and experienced almost all of these things as well as has my husband. And we didn't realize how stuck this stuff was in our body and unconsciously holding us back. And throughout about a 16-year period of time, I was attracting other people who had the same traumas, coaches, mentors, business partners, friends. And guess what? I believe we come into these bodies, we choose our family, we choose our friends, we unconsciously choose all of these people to help be mirrors to us, to mirror back what has got to be healed in order for us to wake up to our truth. And I believe that's what's happening on the planet right now. There's a lot of people getting divorced. There's a lot of people breaking up. There's a lot of partnerships disbanding, and it's not bad. I'm just here to tell you it's actually for our greater good. But if you don't understand that, and if you don't start to heal that, you're absolutely going to feel lost, dazed, and confused, and be where Dee and I were 2 years ago, until I went inward and really started to heal my trauma from this lifetime. My ancestors actually couldn't really help me. So Dee got word from his ancestors first. I had to go and peel back a lot of layers of the onion, because your past will be your future until you have the courage to create a new one. So this is a very courageous path. Your past will be your future until you have the courage to create a new one. So I drew the line in the sand, and I got to the root causes of my own trauma, and then, of course, the ancestral. So what if I told you you can get to the root cause of these and change your relationship with any and all behaviors, unconscious beliefs, limiting beliefs that are holding you back, addictive behaviors like I had? It all started with that choice to heal myself first. So fear being at the root of those causes that I inherited by many influences, right? Most of them ancestral, I now know. But my fears in this lifetime were all on this page right here. And I read the book. I referenced that I would tell you about this book, You're Not Broken, by Christopher Michael Duncan. And it really reminded me of like, oh my gosh, I've been driven by my not enoughness. I've been driven by my need to be perfect. And again, I have now discovered that didn't start with me. And in this lifetime, I inherited a lot of that from my mom. She was a schizophrenic. She left me many, many times. So there was constant abandonment, constant wounds of not feeling enough and not wanting to make waves in my family. I was the youngest of 4. And my father did his best, but it was a lot. It was a lot for him to shoulder. If you think about your own life and your own parents, they didn't just get to be that way on their own, right? Just like we didn't get to be this way on our own. And so I had a deep, deep mother wound. So between that and then peeling back the layers of the onion, my father wounds, I have a very, very wounded masculine side of my family. Going back and getting into this much deeper, found where it came from, great grandfathers. On both sides, I had a lot of trauma that were driving my addictive behaviors and driving me to be unhappy, driving me to be where I was at, 2 years ago. Of all of those things I had on that page, none of it was by accident. And it wasn't just my stuff to keep holding me back or down any longer. So once I started healing my own stuff and realizing that I had inherited stories from my family, from my lineage, from the ancestors as well. And I was stuck with those stories that I was told as a kid. Alcoholism ran in the family. We've now had multiple people die of that. Mental illness ran in the family. So I lived my life always wanting to be perfect because I was afraid that I would become mentally ill. And I struggled with depression. So there's always these fears that I was addicted to, that someday I would end up like my mom, my brother. Autoimmune disease also runs in my family, right? So guess what? Self-fulfilling prophecy. I ended up having a lot of all three of these things impact me over a course of about a 10-year period until I woke up in 2021. And we are, as a species, you don't just inherit family recipes. We're addicted to the story, the family story. And even when the body goes to sleep, we can dream. I had lots of dreams about my father and my brother, my mother over the past couple of years. It will come up as I was letting it go. My subconscious was allowing it to come into my conscious mind so that I could release it. But I had to choose to heal and to rewrite the story. So over the course of really about the past 2 years, honestly, because I was stumbling and fumbling, I didn't have necessarily the support, the container now that my husband and I have created. But my marriage is the best ever. We still argue, we still fight, we're still, typical people, right? But now we understand where a lot of times, if anything comes up, we right away are like, okay, this is somewhere in our ancestry. let's get to the root cause of this. And now we have the ability to figure that out. Making money in the flow of my new current passion. I wasn't doing this a year ago. Okay. And I had a massive ego death and working with my ancestors also on closing the door on my quote unquote old career and label as a sales coach. And now I'm not working hard. I'm working much less. Deeply connected with my children. I shed 30 pounds without finding it back. Clients are having massive breakthroughs. I reframe my relationship with alcohol, food that's in alignment with my truth. Now that I understand, again, the root cause of it, change my relationship with grief, understanding karmic contracts, understanding all of how important it is to allow yourself to grieve. Like congestive heart failure ran in my family. That was another thing I forgot to put on the list. And that was because most of my German ancestors were so stoic and so bottled up and their, brick walls around their heart, right? So that they wouldn't feel. And I find a lot of people have that, are really, really shut down in their heart. So I was allowing myself to grieve and really, really fully grieve and heal. And now I'm the highest and best version of myself with my ego in check. I observe it. I've made it my friend, and I'm trusting my intuition. I'm trusting myself more. So those are all of the benefits for me that I found going down this path of personal healing trauma and then connecting with the ancestors. So is it your time to heed the call? Do you believe, like Dee and I do, that you are the ancestor that changes everything for your bloodline, that you are the golden light in human form brought to earth with a higher purpose? I love this other picture, this quote, the black sheep of the family is bringing new life to the family tree, right? If that is you, then we would love to help you. We would love to support you. I'm just checking my time here. Okay, I'm good. I am going to quickly share the one of the processes. So Dee and I have now countless processes that we can do to help people, and it doesn't need to involve plant medicine. Oh, by the way, I do believe big fan of it, big endorser of it. You can always talk about that with us privately. But he, my husband now, has these gifts from his ancestors where we can go in to a non-plant medicine ceremony and have a conversation with the ancestors and get to the root cause. So I had, like I said earlier, had an abusing alcohol situation going on, right? And again, I thought, oh, this is just because my brother had it, my uncle had it. Oh, woe is me. I'm a victim of this family, right? And there was a lot of shame in my family around this, and never really understood it. And so in this one ceremony, we went back to when the Christian expansion was happening in Germany. And turns out, since I am of Germanic paganism origin, my ancestors at that time were trying to help, going village to village to let people know about the fact that the Christians were coming up through Italy from France and basically, taking over villages. And if people didn't comply, they could be killed, right? Or their village burnt down. And so my ancestors went to this one village. They warned them, hey, they're coming. We want you to be prepared. And so, of course, my ancestors, what I learned is they love music, joy, laughter, and fun. So even though they were facing this great challenge, they decided to have a great feast. Beer or mead was flowing. And sure enough, they drank a lot. They stayed up late, and they didn't hear, at least not in enough time, they didn't hear the Christians coming to the village. And unfortunately, some of the village people were killed. My ancestors were able to get away, but they had a massive amount of shame around their alcohol use. And that came up for me just really in the last few years. I never had that shame and abandonment feeling. But it reared its ugly head the past few years, especially since my brother died. I believe my brother also died to help me wake up, to help me have this opportunity to really heal him, heal the bloodline, and going all the way back. And that's just one story. I could tell you dozens more, but it was a major breakthrough for me to now have love and compassion, unconditional love and compassion for myself, my brother, my uncle, and then all the way back. So in that one healing ceremony, and of course, integrating it, processing it, journaling, breath work, some of the other things I'll talk about in a minute, all of that together was able to help me come back into alignment. And now I don't beat myself up and have that experience. And this actually just happened a few weeks ago. So I believe most Black sheep of the family become self-healers, break their generational curses or ancestral curses of fear, guilt, and shame. We all have it. We all have it, especially in the last few thousands of years of patriarchal systems, slavery, all of the, people killing people to be in power, control. And now we get to start our own lineage. We get to heal our ancestors, work with the healed and wise ancestors, and rewrite the story, guys. We're also heading into the age of Aquarius. And if you haven't studied that, it's a kind of a big deal. A lot of people are believing it's starting this month. I'm not an expert on that. I'm just telling you. But a lot of my favorite people that I talk to and follow say it's starting this month. That's why it's so intense this month. And it's going to go through the end of 2024. And the big thing I wanted to highlight here, and this is what our ancestors are calling us to wake up to, is healers are becoming extra powerful. More people are uncovering psychic gifts and developing at a super fast rate. Hence what's happened for me and Didier and a lot of people, my clients and other friends. People are wanting to earn living in a meaningful way, not just make money for the sake of making money. People are less willing to compromise in love. It's more difficult to conform. You have to find a way to live that allows your uniqueness to shine, and understanding that you have something unique to offer to the world. But if you're so mired down by trauma and ancestral stuff, it's really hard to see the forest for the trees. So in this changing time, we're being called to learn how to reparent those places in our emotional psyche that have been abandoned, as well as the ancestral stuff. We're learning to find that maturation in ourselves, again, with the help of the healed and wise ancestors and our guides and guardians and angels and the divine, and helping us find that sacred union of masculine, feminine, because we all have that polarity inside of us, in our brain, two hemispheres, but inside of our body. And that's why I love Kundalini yoga so much, because it really works on balancing both those sides. And there's lots of other things that can help you do that. But again, knowledge is power, and you got to make that unconscious ancestral trauma and your own trauma come up to be purged, cleansed, and released. So a question to you is, how are you going to enter into the age of Aquarius? You can start putting questions in the Q&A field, by the way. I won't see it in the chat. So if you have questions, put it in the Q&A feature. How will you shine your uniqueness? How will you reclaim your spiritual gifts? How will you speak your truth, be seen, be heard, be paid if you have it at your own business, or oh my gosh, I'm thinking of it. The Great Resignation is happening also for that same reason. People are like, enough is enough. And it can't happen truly, fully though, and living your best life without healing this. And this is our personal belief and our personal experience. So what Dee and I have put together is we have put together a 7-week breaking generational myths, as we like to call them, where we want to coach you. We want to also offer up healings and opportunities. Some of the stories we were sharing. You'll receive 3 one-on-one coaching sessions or processes, like I said, and we have many in our vast tool belt now. 4 group coaching sessions, so you'll not feel alone. You'll feel connected to other people, and we're going to probably cap it at like 6 people. You get actually member vault access as a bonus to my health and wealth courses. That it's all about making the unconscious conscious, so that you can bring it up, see it, love it, bless and release it. We have weekly meditations, breathwork and yoga, super conscious classes to help, again, make the unconscious conscious with ease and grace, inner child healing, and all sorts of things that are at our beck and call to help serve and support you. This is just a fancy picture. Didn't really need to have this here, but this is just what was included as my subscription for the breathwork, the Kundalini yoga, the meditation, the superconscious creation, nutrition classes. Because here's the deal. These bodies hold the score. And if you don't nourish yourself, and like the breath work and the Kundalini is help process and to raise the vibration and the prana, the life force energy, and also to purge things naturally. Again, no plant medicine involved here. You really, it doesn't leave you. Like you have to like literally breathe it out, cry it out, purge it out, whatever that looks like. And that's a huge part of the program. So we'll be working on the mother-father wound. My husband mentioned the religion, spirituality wound. I indirectly talked about that with my ancestors. That's a big one. Life events wound, divorce, business failures, things of that nature. And then your grief wounds. We want to help you get to the root causes of those through yourself first in this body, in this lifetime, but then go in and help talk to the ancestors, bring up whatever is meant to be brought up and clear it and integrate it. Integration is really, really important. We also want to help you consult your healed and wise ancestors. This is really a great throwback to the Black Panther. When he, again, and it wasn't, I'm not exactly sure if you could call it plant medicine, but he took a drink of an herb and he went under and he went and talked to his wise and healed ancestors. My husband can do that beautifully and support you without plant medicine, but you know, you can also have that as an option. But that's where he got a lot of wisdom and helps us feel not alone. And you can call upon them anytime, anywhere, once you build that relationship. And that's what we want to help you do so that you can really rise up on wings like eagles, having them carry you through some of potentially what could be your darkest nights of the soul. Like I said, this is not easy work, should not be done alone. And in my opinion, just one-off, sessions also can only get you so far. So that's why we created this program. So again, the program's 7 weeks, start date to be determined, $8,000 in value. And we're only charging $19.97 or 3 payments of $697. And it's virtual. So you can be anywhere in the world. You can invite your partner. Dee and I did this work together. Honestly, don't know if we'd be married if we hadn't. So it was really, really a pivotal turning point. And I will tell you, with all that value, I stumbled, I fumbled, and I spent 60 grand, guys, in 2 years to heal this life wounds and ancestral trauma. I'm not ashamed to admit I went into debt to save my life. I thought debt sounded better than death. And again, you can't do this alone. So if you're ready, we'd love to hear from you. We put everything inside of this program. It is our first time offering, and we're really, really excited to be doing this together. I see we have a couple questions. I was going to share a couple testimonials as well, but I want to get to the questions. And then Didier, if you want to come back on in case you thought of anything else that you want to add. I'll answer the questions first. Catherine asked, is this core wound work? No, we put it together, everything that I and Didier, and that was only me. I was the 60 grand. We didn't even calculate his, but he had tons of help. So we've taken everything from everything we did. Plant medicine educated us. Our ancestors educated us. I did get a certification with the superconscious creation through the You're Not Broken. But then everything else is just our gifts that are coming back online because of this age of Aquarius, because of what's happening. And then just a lot of thought, working with beta testers along the way, getting feedback, and also taking some processes from some of our best mentors, like one of our processes called the Ancestral lineage imprint removal. And it's a really intense process, but it helped me do some massive clearing, especially around the shame and abandonment stuff. So, and I don't know how core wound work works, Catherine, but this is our own program that we created. Vanessa, while the collective is experiencing ascension symptoms, are there tools that help you get through the foggy, sleepy brain? Do you sleep when your body wants you to sleep? I find it challenging with demands of work to honor what my body needs at times. Well, and that's where, full disclosure, I mean, I chose to take a lot of spaciousness and declutter my life because I was that workaholic, and I totally needed that spaciousness to heal and process. So it's really up to you, setting healthy boundaries, getting rid of things and relationships and business stuff that no longer serves you. And the ascension symptoms, that's why I built the container with the meditation, the breath work, the Kundalini yoga, which Vanessa, I know you're in. The more you do that stuff and apply it, the more the fog literally clears. But Dee, you might want to also speak about do you sleep when your body wants to sleep? Because you had a little bit of a different process with me, and you had a lot of times where you didn't sleep. So can you answer that question?
Yes, absolutely. So the key here with this ascension, there is one keyword that really helps leverage the field of friction. It's surrender. Surrendering is such a powerful word. Surrender to the wisdom of the process that you're going through. This process, this ascension, is being orchestrated at the divine level. We talk about the creator of our whole freaking universe has put his attention on Earth, our little planet. We're not the only ones in the whole big ass universe. But he's put all of his attention on this Earth to help us go through this ascension, because it's time for Earth to do it. We are there. This is our moment in the galactic history where we're going to start expanding, and all kinds of interesting things are going to happen after that. Surrender to that process with trust. Have to surrender with trust, which means your body is very wise. When the body is advising you to slow down, try to listen to it. Reprioritize your life to give the spaciousness that Lois just talked about. And I can tell you something, when you are fighting the surrender and fighting the creation of the spaciousness, you're going to get grounded. You're going to get grounded. It means that there will be events that are going to happen that are going to slow you down. I think most recently, Lois and I, we were trying to get ready for a very powerful retreat. And maybe I was not slowed down enough. I had a nasty injury to my foot. How much more explicit can it be that stop running, slow down? Something important is coming your way. You got to slow down. I got injured to force myself to slow down. because I was, again, trying to get too much into the doing of things, trying to maybe plan too much ahead of time, right? And I needed to do the opposite. So I was grounded, like being injured and forced to slow down so I could create that spaciousness to let my body, my entire being go through whatever it was it needed to go through. That's very, very important. At night, sometimes I didn't sleep and I would be woken up and I would have my conversation with my guides, sometimes my ancestors, and I would just surrender to the process. I'm like, okay, it's time to have a conversation, let's have it. And then when I get tired, I'm like, can I go back to sleep now? I make a request. Talk to your beloved God, right? Or your version of that, right? And they will listen to your needs. But the really important thing is to really surrender with trust to this process. And it's going to change your life in a few ways.
Yeah. And it's all about going inward. So yeah, if you're not sleeping, it's actually probably an ascension symptom too. It's not going to be permanent, but that's why you want to do things like breath work and meditation and yoga, whatever, find your tools and stick with them. That's why I had to have support these past 2 years, because it was scary at times. I thought I was going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I thought I was bipolar at times. And I would try to force things, and having mentors and coaches and guidance. And of course, then my ancestors saying, trust, slow down, trust, surrender. It's an ongoing thing. For sure. Any other questions or ahas if you want to share in the chat? Good to see you, Christine, Jana, Lee, Tamara. Appreciate you guys being here. And give a shout out to Liza. Liza Lomax is on here. She did a reading for me and Didier. I don't know what year it was, 2011, maybe 2012. I don't know. And she kind of predicted that we were going to be doing something important together. And yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah. Cool. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll just share a couple of quick comments. And if you want to email me, I do have a website also that I can share with you in regards to the actual program, and but it just basically says to email to us to apply for the opportunity. Or if you know someone, if it's not your thing, I totally get it. But if you know someone who's struggling, especially with the addictive behaviors, especially with grief, especially with divorce, any kind of grief, career, like I am here to tell you, I was selling the wrong thing. I was not in alignment with my purpose and my passion, and no amount of money can buy you happiness. And my health had been compromised 6 ways till Sunday. And if you lose your health, then what do you have, right? So 2 quick testimonials. And these were from one of our early adopters, beta testers, if you will, who experienced some of this. Within 72 hours, Josephine, who's done a ton of healing, I would say she would even herself say she's a professional healer, going and doing this and that and the other thing, and, spending a lot of money and time, which is why we created this container. We don't want you to spend the amount of money that we spent. You don't need to. She said, I've had my fair share of healings in my life, and I believe that they all helped to peel the onion. I almost rarely feel a difference after one session. And after working with us in the one-time healing session, she felt a big shift, and friends even told that they could feel it, see it. You can't really see instant results with this kind of work, but she was a testimonial to how much more calm she was in her life as a mom and a wife, and had the opportunity to connect with her healed and wise ancestors. And then Katie, working on weight loss and financial health, had a lot of lack and scarcity in this lifetime that she had done a lot of work on. I don't know if anybody can relate. You do a lot of work around financial abundance. You read Think and Grow Rich for the 50th time, and you say all your affirmations, money flows freely to me. You do all the things, right? You buy all the courses about money blocks and so on and so forth. Well, she did all that. And so she did a one-on-one session with me, and we did a regression, and she was able to get into a meditative state quickly and easily, and really cut through the cobwebs, and got to her ancestral line that actually both sides, we were able to connect with both mom and dad side, and had an eye-opening experience to get to the root of what she was looking to do to heal that scarcity, that lack, that fear that had been hiding. So she had an amazing experience. So I will drop that link in the chat. Is there any other stories or anything? Thank you, Vanessa. Anything else you want to add, Dee, before we wrap it up, since I don't see any other questions?
No, I mean, these are great testimonials. So we have a few more like that, recent ones. For example, one of my recent customer or clients, if you want, needed to resolve some grief that was kind of always coming up. And I did a session. We did it remotely. Sessions can be also done remotely. And I took him to a council of his ancestors. It was very interesting how this thing played out. There was a council of his ancestors. The healed and wise ancestors were all gathered around a tree, and he was welcome to sit at the council of his ancestors. And then they had a conversation with him, and we discovered that his grandfather was the source of his anger. And his grandfather came forth and did some work of healing on him. And I was facilitating and all that by creating a sacred space and a safe one for things like that to happen. You just don't do it like that. You need to have a very specific protocol because you want to keep it safe for everybody involved. And when the container was safe, the ancestors were able to do the work they needed to do on him. And he started, of course, feeling much more lighter, but it's an ongoing. It was just a one-time session. And we're talking about going a little bit deeper than the first section. But that first section was so much like mind-blowing. And some of the things that he was thinking he had inside him that never really got to the root, like, some kind of I would say supernatural psychic things. He never told me that. It came during the session, and it was like, oh my God, yes. Now I understand. Now I connect with that part of me, that gift that came through my family, that my grandmother had, that gave to my mom, that currently I have it too. And I was like, okay, so there. This is not only you get healed from things that are burdens, but also get reactivated some of the beautiful gifts and abilities that are part of your family heritage. And his started coming online, and it helped him deal with his grief and anger.
Yeah, knowledge is power. And then the integration part. We always want to support people because then the stuff can come up, but then how do you integrate and process that? Because there'll be other things that come up even beyond that session. So if you or someone you know wants to have an amazing first part of the age of Aquarius, as I do believe this year is the age of Aquarius, and there's ascension symptoms. I listed 26 on my podcast this week that no medical doctor can really understand or explain. That was also part of our process. As things come up, there's ascension symptoms, and we want to help you purge them fast so that you aren't sick all the time, or that you aren't in a state of downward spiral all the time, and helping you do it in a safe space. So if you want to be like one of these ducklings taking the leap off of the bridge, which is exactly what we felt like many times over, we can help catch you, love on you, and be able to help you fly on the other side of that. Spread your wings, shine your light, be that unconditional, loving light healer gift to the world that you all ultimately are. That's our wish for you. So without further ado, I think we are good to go, and appreciate you guys investing your time. And I dropped a link in the chat. You should have seen it if you want to grab it. And then I will follow up and email everyone the recording. I know if you guys are watching on the replay, I know you couldn't attend live, but we do have the the recording going to be emailed out to you and uploaded into my YouTube channel. So until then, next time, guys, we covet your referrals and thank you for your awareness of this very, very important, timely global topic, as many people are waking up to their truth, and we want them to do it safely, painfully, less painfully, safely and support it as best as possible. I think I'm getting tired. Dee, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, we're done.
We're out. All right. My chips are cashed. Love you guys. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.